Thank you so much for staying tuned. Well, it's all about the event that shaped 2018. Because it's like a spillover into 2019, some events were resolved in 2018, while some others spilled into 2019. It's like the same old story, but somewhere along the line there's going to be a solution. So to speak with me here in the studio is a political analyst. Join me, welcome Williams, wife of Williams. Welcome to the show.
Thank you very
and
much.
Happy New Year.
Yeah, same to you.
All right.
Happy New Year to everyone.
Well, invitations we extended to great personalities to be on the ground talking about this show, but due to one or two reasons, they just couldn't make it. The likes of Honorable Gareth Dubois, he's unavoidably absent, and of course, Stanley has been held down by an emergency. So not to worry, next week, end of the programs, Africa Discuss on International Forum, we get to see them talk their own parts about global and continental events. Well, Williams, 2018 was a wonderful year. Lots and lots of things happened in 2018, the good, the bad, the ugly, and of course not so good. Mother Nature has its own fair share, because Mother Nature also erupted in 2018. We saw devastations, we saw so many things, but since we can't go through all of it, we just want us to go down memory lane in 2018 to pick out some countries that were known to be so peaceful. For instance, France.
Was France so peaceful?
Yes.
France was, at least there was no war, but like you were going through the news that made the rounds, we saw the yellow vest protesters. They protested because there was hike in petroleum price. Those were basically just cab drivers who came together and said, no, enough is enough. These prices they are affecting our income, they are affecting everything that we're doing. Inflation is on the rise because when transportation cost increases, every other thing increases. So they were also complaining about taxation and that they barely can take home anything from what they make. So they were protesting that Emmanuel Macron should bring down the price of petroleum products. But then it's not also Macron's fault, because he's also trying to keep with the Paris Climate Accord that was signed some years ago, because those major countries, those industrialized countries, they've been trying to reduce their carbon emission. So in line with that, he was trying to discourage the use of fuel by increasing pump price and all that. But the protesters were not having it. They protested for weeks and weeks on end. Even when he returned the price to what it was before, they were now calling for his resignation, saying that he's been arrogant and all that. So France has had his fair share of protests, but it has been relatively peaceful, apart from just later part of last year where the protest was beginning to spiral into something else. But thank God the government is doing something to clamp down on it now, because I feel there should be an aspiration to something. It's gone on for long enough. I think by now everybody should rest on their laurels, go back to the drawing board, and then give the government some time.
No, but from what you can see, it's like there's a spillover from 2018 to 2019, because we still have some pockets of protests here and there in the city of France, and Macron isn't finding it funny, despite the fact that he chose to reduce the fuel pump price of petrol. These protesters, some of them that sit there in the street, what do you think is behind this?
I think what you have now is more of a political motivation. When your opponents find something they can lash on to bring you down, they hold fast to it. They don't want to let it go. So I wouldn't be surprised if the opposition has seized this protest, joined the yellow vest protesters, even maybe probably mobilize people to join them, so they could keep this going for as long as possible, at least enough to tarnish the image of and the presidency of Emmanuel Macron, so that it could have a dent on his presidency. Maybe towards the next election, this could be an issue they would raise as one of his downturns during his presidency. So I think politics has come into play, because if you say you are clamoring for something and that thing has been resolved, or at least has been brought down to a bearable minimum, I think people should now relax and then give the man some time to figure things out. So if by now you still have protests on the streets, then there is a likelihood that the opposition has seized this as an opportunity to tarnish the image and the presidency of Emmanuel Macron ahead of the next general election, so they can use this as an issue against him.
Tarnish the image of Emmanuel Macron. But don't you feel that there are other issues that these protesters are trying to bring to the fore? Because Macron or the government of France have been able to reduce the fuel pump price, but they are still out there in the street. What about other aspects that have been taxed?
Yeah, like taxes.
Yeah.
So I don't know how much he has done about the tax system, but I do know that that fuel issue was actually the main thing they came out for. And that has been resolved. Yeah. So I think they should give the man some time to figure out the rest, rather than saying no, they won't leave the streets. Because a lot of these things that they are doing now is disrupting economic activities in the state, and the country is losing a lot of money by virtue of these protests that they are engaging in. So I think it's high time they calm down and give Emmanuel Macron some time. At least they've presented what they want from the president. So I think they should give him some time now to figure out how best to proceed from where they are now to where they should be. It's not the time to say, oh, let's just run the country aground. But I believe they should give him some time to figure out the other
So
things.
how long do you think they should give him? Because people are still, seeing the euphoria of protest, even after some aspect of their protests have been, sated, so to speak. They're still out there. That means there is more to these protests. How long should they give the government of Macron?
That time frame I can't really set, but I think if you give the man a year to figure out things, and then he still doesn't change his policies, then I believe you have that moral justification again to
It's
come
a
on the
year
street.
not too long for a man to figure out what he need to do to revamp, or will I say, to set the anger of his people.
The truth is, policies are not things you just come up with every now and then. Sometimes what you've been doing may take a couple of months or many more months to settle down for a new policy to kick in. So you need to bring all that into the equation, not just saying, oh, okay, today you just did this and then tomorrow you do the other. You need to give him some time, probably the policies that were in place before, to pan out, and then you see the effect. Just like when Trump raised taxes the other time, a lot of people were complaining on when he brought down taxes, a lot of people were saying, oh, he only brought it down for the rich and all that. But it took some time for some of even the middle income earners and the poor people to enjoy from that same tax cut. So it takes time sometimes for these things to trickle down. You don't just say, oh, 2 months time, if he doesn't do it. You need to give him some time, at least reasonable time, to figure things out. And if he still doesn't up his game, then you can go back to the streets. Then it will be more morally justifiable to say that yes, we've given him some time and he still hasn't done anything about it. Because what I'm seeing here, I think is politically motivated.
It's politically motivated.
Yes, I think his opponents are using this as a good strategy to...
But do you think these protests will, one way or another, impede his commitment to climate change?
Well, yes.
Because according to what Macron said, he says because of their commitment to the climate change code and where they are, that's why he chose to increase the fuel pump price to prevent people from burning excess fuel that will pollute the environment.
Exactly. I must appreciate Emmanuel Macron for that. Global warming has become a serious threat to the existence of man and every other living thing on the earth. So it's something that every country should take very seriously. And it's so sad to see the backlash he's getting from committing himself to the Paris Climate Accord. So it's dicey, because on one hand you are trying to keep a campaign promise, you are trying to be as humane as you can, because global warming is a serious problem. But on the other hand, you are looking at the yearnings of your people, and how much is biting on their pockets, you increasing the pump price of fuel. But I think some of these things, like the electric cars they are coming up with, the solar inventions they are coming up, I think we should give some of those things time to blossom before taking some of these drastic steps, because people have been used to buying petrol for a long time now to fuel their cars, and the electric cars are not, they are not like, you know, cosmopolitan. They are not everywhere yet. So you need to give some of those inventions some time, you know, to blossom, and then people can then lay hold on them. And then when you are increasing the pump price of fuel, people won't be so agitated. But for now, because of the fact that a lot of people are still dependent on petrol, when you increase the price, there's definitely going to be backlash. So it's a dilemma for him, having to be humane on the one hand, and on the other hand, having to please his own people. But I think he's on the right track. You know, he backtracked, you know, on the price. I think he needs to work on the taxes to make sure that his people have more money to go home with.
All right, working more on the taxes so that the French citizens can have something to go back home. Okay, now let's leave the France or French issue right now, because it was a major story last year, 2018. What about Brexit? Yeah, Theresa May on the fire today, trying to collaborate with some members of parliament tomorrow. Argument here, argument there, deal or no deal, and now they are faced with security challenge, even in the UK.
Yes, I think Brexit, I was never in support of Brexit anyway, because I believe that a powerful alliance has been formed by the EU, of which Britain is a major bloc. So saying that they wanted to leave, you know, the referendum was held, and eventually they started working out, you know, they are leaving the EU. I think it's definitely going to come with some backlash. You know, people ask for something, but then they are not prepared for the circumstances that go with what they are asking for. I mean, I was watching on the news the other time how, you know, Britons, a lot of people who are in Britain, other EU country member nationals who are in Britain, are now having to leave. In fact, there's been a massive brain drain from even Nigeria to the UK, because a lot of people are leaving now to their respective countries because policies are changing due to Brexit. And a lot of people are having to leave. A lot of doctors are having to even leave Nigeria to the UK because they are in high demand over there. So it's causing a lot of turmoil in the system, because they were used to the EU system and now they are now being isolated. You can't eat your cake and have it. You can't have the things you were enjoying whilst in the EU, and you want to enjoy those same things when you have left the EU. No, it's not possible. So that's what the EU has been trying to make Britain understand. It's either you are with us and you enjoy the fringe benefits of being with us, or you leave and be isolated and be on your own. And if you now have to deal with us, then we have to work out a deal that profits both sides, because now you are no longer.
Out what is really happening globally, the event that shaped 2018, we are still very much on the Brexit matter. Now, is that enough for people to start protesting? Both regulated protests, sanctioned protests, unsanctioned protests, protests here and there in the UK, to the extent that the member of parliament, 50 of them, were so agitated for them to write a petition to the police chief. They say, look, this is what is going on. We are afraid for our lives. Is that enough for them to start doing this kind of protest or embarking on such a venture?
Well, that's the beauty of democracy. It gives people the room to express themselves, to do, because you can't expect them not to protest when the deal they were expecting from Brexit, they are no longer getting it. You know, and from what Theresa May has been presenting to the parliament and to the people, a lot of people are dissatisfied. I know even the commissioner on the Brexit had to resign one time.
Yeah.
So a lot of things have happened, and people are dissatisfied with what they are saying. The deal that she brokered with the EU is not what they had bargained for when they were clamoring for Brexit. So now it's become very dicey for her, because some are even calling for her resignation already. So and as for protests are very good, because it's what makes democracy what it is. When you are dissatisfied with the system, you protest, you let your voice be heard, and the necessary apparatus picks it up. So, but the only issue with that, the only security issue with that is for the fear of terrorism. You know, when people gather, there is a likelihood, or there is this fear, this paranoia that, you know, someone may drive a car into the crowd of protesters, or someone may attack a parliament member, or, you know, the opposition. So many things start to play into protest. It initially starts with a very honest intention, but then later starts to spiral into other areas that people never thought it would get to. So I think the security challenges are there because just like I said before, when people gather, a lot of things could go wrong. A lot of bad actors could come into play. People can be stabbed. Someone can ram his car into the crowd. A parliament member can be attacked. It's not like you know, some other crimes where, you know, you find 13 policemen guiding one man. But in their case, they are usually very simple. You find some of them riding bicycles on the street. So it will be very easy to attack any of them if anyone would want to. So I think the fear for their life is called for. So I believe the protest is just part of democracy.
All right, now, having gone this far with the Brexit pursuit, do you see it coming true?
Well,
because though there are still some agitation, some disagreements, some discrepancies here and there, do you see it happening?
I think personally, I think there should be a second referendum. I believe a lot of people, due to this immigration scare, they just wanted Brexit. You know, they felt like, oh, the EU has tied their hands behind their backs. They no longer can take decisions as to who comes into their country and who doesn't. Nigel Farage was at the vanguard of it all. You know, and he even went to America one time to help Trump with his populist message, how people shouldn't come into the UK just like that. But forgetting that, there are a lot of benefits that come with free trade and, you know, free movement of people within the EU. So now they are beginning to see the effects. They are beginning to see the effects of them having to leave the EU. And a lot of people have had a rethink. So I am of the opinion that a second referendum should be held. People's opinions should be heard again, because by now I think they've reevaluated their positions. They already know what they want. So if anybody still wants to leave, then let them vote. Who wants to remain should vote. Theresa May, who is, you know, brokering this deal now, voted to remain, but then she's having to broker the deal for them to leave. So it's very dicey. I think they should go back to the drawing board, do a second referendum, hear what the people have to say about what's going on. I believe they've had enough time now to evaluate what the effects would be. So if they still want Brexit to happen, then, you know, more people should be brought to the table to broker that deal. Maybe come up with an agreement which Theresa May can present. And if there are discrepancies, she can come back to the table, confer with the parliament, and then they confer with their people. If they are okay with the compromises here and there, then they can go ahead with the deal. So I think a second referendum is called for at this junction.
But do you see them following through with a second referendum, or just go straight to Brexit, having fought for this long?
Well, although Theresa May has been saying there will be no second referendum, I believe Brexit will happen. It will happen, and I believe with time Britain will stabilize again. It's just the initial turmoil that comes with change. But I believe pretty soon they will smooth sail, and they will find their path in the world again. They find their position and know how to negotiate with other countries. But now the negotiating power is going to be very, very small, because they are just one country, you know, negotiating with the entire EU. So their negotiating power is going to be very weak. So I think that's some of the fears some people are now entertaining, because they are now a single country against an entire continent.
Deal or no deal? Is it going to be deal or no deal in this aspect? Well, deal for Brexit or no deal?
Well, that is yet to be seen, because a lot of people, like I said, are dissatisfied. But if she decides to go ahead to make a deal, maybe the cost for her will be her office, because a lot of people are already saying that she's inept and she should leave, she should resign and all that. So let's see how things play out. But I think they would reach a deal, but it may not be palatable to the Britons.
All right. And you just can't talk about 2018 without talking about the Rocket Man. Don't forget the word dotard. Yeah, two leaders spewing fire at each other. Talk about Kim Jong-un, the supreme leader of North Korea, and the president of the United States of America, Donald Trump. And right now, Kim Jong-un has gone to China to chill. You want to use the term chillax? There's no word like that. Okay, just coined, all right? What do you feel about this? Because Kim Jong-un is disturbed about the fact that sanctions still being meted on North Korea after himself, Donald Trump, signed a treaty to the total denuclearization of the North Korean as a country.
Okay, I believe that North Koreans have been they've been very dissident when it comes to denuclearization. It's been decades on ending. The world leaders have had to come together to try to get them to denuclearize, but they just keep going, no matter the weight of sanctions. And that's why I expected Trump to be a little more diplomatic with his language, given that he's the leader of the free world. But time and time again, he has failed to show leadership. He has failed to take the bull by the horn, understanding that the whole world watches him. They watch his body language. You know, just like when he calls the free press fake news, you know, irrespective of if they are telling the facts, he called them fake news. And then you find pressmen being killed around the world. So the same thing happened with Kim Jong-un when, you know, he was calling him Rocket Man and all that, and the other one called him Dotard. Forgetting that you engaging in such a trade of insults with a man like Kim Jong-un only empowers him. You know, he literally brought Kim Jong-un to the center stage of world politics. And the man enjoyed every bit of it, provoking the US and then getting a response from Trump. Every time he did that, all he did was sway some supporters towards Kim Jong-un. Because a lot of people started to think, oh, if you can get to keep your own nuclear weapons, why can't this guy develop his? I read a transcript of Vladimir Putin's address to his people one time, where he even praised Kim Jong-un for standing up to the US, because those are sworn adversaries of the US. So when you are dealing with someone like Kim Jong-un, when you say, oh, Barack Obama didn't, you know, have any summit with Kim Jong-un, that's not supposed to be a plus to the United States. It's not supposed to be a status symbol that the president of the United States gets to meet with a dissident leader like Kim Jong-un.
You can use the word dissident to him. He's a supreme leader, and these people respect him a lot. Even China respects him. Russia respects him.
Hundreds of thousands of people have died under his watch. A lot of people have been held in gulags, in illegal prisons.
Do you have proof of that? Because yes, from a report, North Korea is like, you know, secluded from the world.
Yes, they even have their own intranet. They don't have internet. So their people can't get to see what's happening out there. And that's why a lot of the citizens in North Korea think Kim Jong-un is the king of the world. I mean, if he says he wants to attack the US, so be it. You know, you call him supreme leader, but he's just another leader somewhere. I thank God that Trump has not put his hand on the nuclear button, but both leaders have, last year, they agreed to tamper down on the language and then to work out something during the June 12th summit in Singapore. But sadly, Kim Jong-un, being who he is, has continued his nuclear enrichment. Satellite images have shown that they've not slowed down on their uranium enrichment, so they are still going ahead with their nuclear missile program. And the US has not also slowed down on its sanctions. They've continued to come down hard on the administration. So there's a lot of hunger in North Korea right now because of these sanctions. So I guess that's why he has had to run to Beijing to seek some respite from Xi Jinping. So I think last year was quite a historic year, because that would be like the first time the president of the United States will be meeting with the supreme leader of North Korea. But sadly, it was more about, you know, the paparazzi and everything for Trump. He wasn't so interested in what was to come out of that summit, because you could tell that he was just having fun with the whole process, talking about how many people watched the summit. I mean, you should be bigger than, as the leader of the free world, you should be bigger than some things. TV ratings should not be your problem. Your problem should be solving issues around the world. And you know, America First, which has been his slogan, has been there, has been trying to seclude the US from so many deals, from so many agreements, even the Paris Climate Accord. It's only America and Nicaragua, a third world country, probably will be called a fifth world country if there's any classification like that. Only the United States and Nicaragua are out of the Paris Climate Accord. So even the other countries that you are thinking are not so big are trying to live by what the Paris Climate Accord stipulates. But Donald Trump, believing that, oh, Obama signed that deal, had to pull out of the JCPOA, you know. So it's been a very turbulent year because of the nature of the person that's in the White House.
No, all right. Now, but before we go to the man Trump, because he has a lot, he had a lot to do last year. I don't know if he's going to continue with the year 2019. Let's zoom in on what is really happening in North Korea. Kim Jong-un going to China, and he's going to be there till about 10th of January. You talked about him going there for a respite, so to speak. Where do you think the Chinese stand in all the sanctions still being meted on North Korea? And from satellite images, they are still enriching the uranium for nuclear empowerment or armament. How do you feel this will really play out?
Well, whether anyone believes it or not, China is sympathetic towards North Korea. They've traded with North Korea for decades now, and they've had a very good working relationship with other supreme leaders prior to the emergence of Kim Jong-un. So that sympathy towards their plight is there. So I don't see, and the trade war that Donald Trump got into with Xi Jinping, with China.
We'll come to that.
Well.
We'll come to that.
Yes.
But let's meet on this North Korea issue.
Why I brought that in was that when you want a man to help you, because the world knows that China is the major backing that North Korea has.
Yeah.
And if you want to deal with North Korea, you have to remove China from their back. And if you are trying to remove China from their back and at the same time engaging in trade war with China, what do you expect? China will definitely, you know, play some fast ones on you, because it's been seen that vessels are still carrying petroleum products and other goods that sanctions are supposed to be on from vessel to vessel, being assisted by the Chinese people. So it is Donald Trump's place to try and get China to the table to make sure that those sanctions are effective, because left to America, they cannot do it on their own. They must rely on their allies like, you know, China and Japan and some other countries around the Korean Peninsula to make sure that those sanctions are meted out and, you know, to get North Korea to backtrack on their nuclear program. But North Korea has since not done that. They've tried to get the backing of Russia, which they have, and you know Russia, they are sworn enemies of the United States. So these politics or these things, they should be done tactfully. When you are trying to get, you know, someone down, then you can, at some point, you may even have to deal with your enemies to bring them down. But Trump has not successfully been able to rally his allies to really clamp down on North Korea. So he has gone to Beijing now, trying to get Xi Jinping. Probably, we don't know what is actually there for, but I don't think it's far from the weight of the sanctions, having to, you know, see how they can ameliorate what's going on.
With the sanctions in place, do you see the supreme leader of North Korea denuclearizing?
No, I don't.
Do you see them sticking to that agreement?
I don't.
And if they don't, whose fault is it?
I don't see them sticking to that agreement, and you won't blame them too much, because given the erratic nature of the man they are dealing with in the White House, this is a man who says A in the morning and says B in the evening and says F at night. You know, nothing is straightforward, nothing is regular, nothing is consistent. So when you are dealing with such a person, and whether or not you like it, the nuclear armament that North Korea has been a serious bargaining chip for them. You know, if you want us to give this up, you have to give us this. If you want us to, so it's been there decade after decade. They are trying to use that to get the attention of the world. there's probably something that they want from, you know, this whole thing before they denuclearize. But I doubt if they would do so, because they are so paranoid. North Korea, the supreme leader, is so paranoid because there's just this feeling that the whole world is after us. Meanwhile, they are the major aggressors in that region, threatening South Korea every now and then. But on their own, the paranoia has been steady. They are scared of what may happen if they give up their nuclear armament. They see it as the only thing they have.
The only bargaining chip.
The only thing they have to even strike back if anything should happen. But then China is also trying to be careful to avoid a humanitarian crisis around that Korean peninsula, because if the US should unilaterally attack North Korea, we know that, you know, their borders will be open, and then there will be a crisis in the border of China. So China is also trying to play the mediator role, even if they are sympathetic towards the cause of North Korea and the supreme leader. They're also trying to see how they can satisfy the West. So I believe they are going to discuss. We believe there's a second summit coming up between Kim Jong-un and Trump. Trump has been talking about it for some time now. So maybe when he discusses with Xi Jinping, maybe that he could give him some opinion on how to proceed when he meets with Donald Trump. So I think all of that is in the offing. So let's just watch and see how things play out.
All right, let's watch and see how things will play out eventually in the course of the year 2019. We're taking a look at 2018 in retrospect. Now, you just can't talk about 2018 without talking about the trade war. America is involved, China is involved, Germany is involved. It's like tax on your goods, tax on my goods. You have to make my goods superior. If not, we're going to cripple your economy. Do you see it coming up again this year, 2019?
Well, we hope that the leader of the free world starts to live up to the responsibility of the weight of his office. I hope to see it 2019, although I've really stopped hoping, because when Donald Trump during his campaign trail would say, oh, he can shoot somebody on the Fifth Avenue and still wouldn't lose any votes. And then he went ahead to win the election. And, you know, we were hoping that he would get more presidential, he would understand the weight of the office which he occupies. But year in, year out, he's been the same. But we still want to, you know, have some enthusiasm that, okay, maybe he would try to up his game a little in 2019, because his body language is what the world follows. Whether or not anyone believes it, America is like, you know, at the center of the world, and anything they do affects every country around the world. So if he on his own can deal with countries, reach agreements, try to compromise a little, I believe trade wars may be a thing of the past, because I hear now that Beijing and Washington, they are talking. They are trying to resolve the trade deficits. But China has also been major bad actors in the world. You know. Bad actors in what terms? Yes, they steal your intellectual property. Before you can take a company there, you have to show them. Is that still that you are rendering your own knowledge to them free of charge? Was there a gun pointed at your head? You have to do this. No, it's an agreement. Yes, fine. Yeah. But then they end up making cutthroat deals with companies that will come to set up in China, and then they steal their intellectual idea. They start manufacturing a product that will compete with that same product, and then they make a whole lot of money from that product. So that's what Donald Trump has been fighting. I mean, presidents before him have promised to fight that battle, but usually will shy away from it due to the ripple effects of a trade war. Because you know, sometime last year we saw the economy shaking a bit due to the effects of the trade war. But I believe they are on the table now. They are discussing as we speak, and soon they will come up with the measures. So what do you think they will come up with this year? Because like a spill-off into 2019. Well, that remains to be seen because of the erratic nature of the persons involved. Xi Jinping is not also an easy man. He may not be on Twitter talking every now and then, but he's also a very firm person. So let's see what the positions they will take, because Trump has been complaining of the over $500 billion deficit in trade. And he has been trying to balance it. But the more he tries to balance it, the more China slams taxes on goods coming from the U.S. In fact, China had to target goods coming from the Rust Belt states. Those states in the United States like Ohio, Wisconsin, some of those states around the Rust Belt where Donald Trump actually seized some of the electoral votes that got him victory. They actually targeted goods from that area, especially soybean and some other agricultural products coming from that area to China. They had to put more taxes on them so that if those goods are affected and the farmers are affected, they can abandon Trump in the 2020 election. So it was actually tactical of the Chinese.
So what you're saying is all political right now?
Yes, because they had to hit him where it hurts. Because if you attack trades coming from or goods coming from California, California is a traditionally blue state, it's a democratic area, so it may not have effect on Trump. But when you start to target traditional red areas, Republican areas where he hopes to get most of his votes from, if those guys are dissatisfied with the trade war, then it could start to have ripple effects on his presidency, which would make him backtrack. So they've been engaging in all that, but I believe soon a deal will be reached. And
right, we just can't talk about 20. They were talking about the movement now, though highly controversial, of the capital of Israel to Jerusalem, from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. That was truly a massive one, as in it shook the world to its fabric. How do you view it?
Yes, it actually shook the world, just like you said, and it came with a lot of killings because there were protests, and the Israeli Defense Forces had to use a lot of force to get Palestinians off their border and all that. So it's a campaign promise so many American presidents have made. Year in, year out, administration after administration. But usually, every 6 months, a waiver is signed because it's been agreed that the capital should be moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. But due to what may happen if you actually do it, what previous US presidents would do is to sign a waiver for another 6 months. So that was what Trump was supposed to do. And he said, no, he's no longer going to sign a waiver. He's going to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. And what that means, because Jerusalem is a place of dispute between the Palestinians and the Israelis. The Israelis believe, from time immemorial, their forefathers lived there. If you go there and excavate, you may see remains of David and the rest of them. So the place belongs to them. But the Palestinians also believe that before this place was ever called your promised land, there were people here, probably they were displaced, and then when you guys also left during the Holocaust, we came back to our place, and now you are claiming it as yours. So that controversy is there as to who really owns the place. And world leaders have been calling for a two-state solution, whereby both parties can get to share Jerusalem. But then the deal has not been effectively worked out due to controversies as to who takes this part and who takes the other part. So all this while they've been trying to manage the situation until Donald Trump said he wanted to move the embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, which led to massive protests and killings of tens of people around that area. So it's a major event that took place last year, and it's bound to shape the politics of that area still for a very long time to come. So normally, if Trump had just signed that waiver, that embassy wouldn't have been moved. But being the unconventional president he has come to be, he had to do it. I think he just enjoys the controversy of doing something that nobody else has done before. So,
all right. And of course, the aspect of fake news. Shut up, fake news. Shut up, fake news.
Fake news actually trended.
Trended last year. It was like,
yes,
fake news.
Yes,
fake news. Shut up, sit down.
And being someone who has a vested interest in the media, I was actually very, very ashamed. In as much as sometimes it looked entertaining, it looked interesting, seeing a man of about 72 years old raining insults on people. Because there was actually a time in Nigeria, a certain president was telling a pressman to keep quiet, and I told my brother, I said, no, this can never happen in the United States. The president of the United States telling a pressman, the free press, to shut up. No, it can never happen.
And it happened in the US.
It's happening in real time. In front of the world media, he doesn't care. He's telling a pressman to shut up and sit down. you know, and calling them fake news, irrespective of the fact that so many of these things reported are actually true. Before Rex Tillerson left as Secretary of State, CNN had been reporting, news about a Rexit, you know, Rex Tillerson may leave the administration, Rex may leave, and he said, no, that is fake news, so fake. The fake news media won't tell you this, you know. And then eventually Rex left. John Kelly at some point too was rumored to be leaving very soon. CNN carried it one time, fake news, but John Kelly will be leaving very soon. And so many other people. So the idea that people report facts and then you call it fake news, and I now hear other world leaders around the world screaming fake news, even when what you are saying is the correct thing. So it actually
trended last year. Fake news.
It's heartening to see that even pressmen have been attacked in different places around the world under the guise of fake news because it was legitimized by Trump.
He did not legitimize. He was like that is fake. No, that's not true. Shut up. Sit down. Shut up. Sit down.
What I'm trying to say is that even when someone reports the fact, okay, take for example, there was a time he was addressing some media personalities, and then he was blabbing and saying that, look, his electoral college vote is the highest since Ronald Reagan. And then after when he gave the media men time to ask him questions, one of them stood up and said, sir, you always call us the fake news, but you know that the information you just gave to the American people now is actually so wrong. Barack Obama's electoral votes were higher than yours. George Bush's electoral votes were higher. And then what he could say was, well, someone just handed that information over to me. I mean, he just trivialized the whole thing.
All right.
It means nothing to him.
Okay, now lots of events last year, and of course our time is up. How do you perceive this year on a global scale? What do you think the world should be expecting this time? Are we going to see something new from Putin, President of Russia, or from Xi Jinping, the supreme leader of North Korea, or the man Donald Trump, the U.S. president?
Well, last year was unprecedented.
Yeah.
Nobody saw a summit between Trump and Kim ever happening. Nobody saw North Korea crossing the demilitarized zone into South Korea.
South Korea.
In fact, they had a unified team for the Winter Olympics, which started in February 9th last year. So a lot of things, it's really hard to say what will happen. But I believe 2019 will spring up more surprises due to the nature of the world leaders we have on the stage right now. I mean, Vladimir Putin is a very controversial personality. He's someone you can hardly predict, you know. Donald Trump is he's predictably unpredictable because anything can happen.
Anything can happen.
Anybody can be insulted, and that is that. So I believe 2019 will spring up more surprises than what we had last year. So we are just going to watch the year unfold and enjoy it while it lasts.
Okay, thank you so much, Williams. I appreciate a wonderful analysis where we just can't call through all of it. So many events took place last year. Some very surprising ones. Some of the events shook the world to its fabric. You know, the movement of Israeli capital from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem.
Sorry, we didn't talk about the Helsinki summit.
Yeah, Helsinki summit.
Trump and Putin.
Yeah, Putin. You know,
he
it's
actually
like
said the CIA. He doesn't believe
more in the CIA. You know, so many things happened. Well, this year is going to be a good year. It's going to be a great year. Just be optimistic, okay? We'll do it again next week, Tuesday, God willing. Bye for now.